Hey girl, it is time for Girl Talk. And today we are going to be diving into the Launch Pad. And what is the Launch Pad? Well, it is a framework that I created to help busy and ambitious moms plan and execute their wins so that they can stop living in chaos, prioritize self care, and keep the promises they make to themselves. This is a 5-phase framework. Say that 10 times fast. 5-phase framework that I incorporated because I used it to basically get my whole life together and just start my business and start living more intentionally and stop living in chaos and all the things that I help women through Hey Girl, Hey Health and Fitness do. This is the framework that I use to do it. So we talked about it real quick. It's 5 phases, and I'm going to dive into each one of those so you can get to know it a little bit better. This is actually the framework that I use for my one-on-one coaching clients as well. We go through each of these, and I tailor it to fit the needs of each client. So what everyone's working towards, what they need is different, but the framework in itself and the activities and exercises that it encompasses pretty much are the same for everyone. So let's dive right on in. The very first phase is what I call the launch phase, and that is where we do vision clarity exercises and we get really clear on what it is you want, where you're trying to go, whether it's a new business, a blog, or just simply getting your life together and in order. We dive into that, what it looks like. We use a lot of journaling and introspection, and tough questions are answered and asked in this phase because I want you to really dig deep and find out your why. A couple of my clients have done this. I said it can be tailored to however you want to work, but one client in particular, she had committed to leaving her full-time job and making her what has been her side hustle for the last 6 years, her full-time job, full-time business. And so in that, we just really dove deep into her why, how it was going to change her life, what it would look like for her, and we got really clear on that. Another client that I have, we spent this time maybe talking about some things from her past that she needed to heal from, get some closure in, and really get clear on why she maybe had some of the habits and beliefs that she had now as an adult because of some things that she experienced younger. So it can look different for different people, but the very first phase is where we dive deep, we get clear and understand what's going on and get ready to launch, which is why I call it the launch phase. Phase 2 is our planning phase, and this is that clear-cut, very tangible, quick results, time management exercises. If you have been following me for any time, you've heard the 3 P's of perfect planning and time management. That's where this falls. We get a handle on your schedule and what you have going on. We talk about prioritizing. So we can list our to-do list all day long, right? But when it comes down to narrowing it down and really focusing what is important, a lot of women struggle in that area. And so I have some tools and tips to help you prioritize your time. We'll look at the 3 Ds, which are do, delegate, and delete. We'll look at those things too and decide and figure out what needs to be done, when, where, and why. And this is where I also throw in that time blocking that I've talked about on Instagram. If you follow me, once again, I talk a lot about time blocking and helping you find a method that works for you. That brings me to phase 3, which is action. This is the fun part because this is where you really get to put forth a plan of action and see, we've gotten clear on what we wanted. We've gotten our whole life together as far as our schedule so that we can make space and time to plan and to put into action. And so the action phase is where we do goal setting. We come up with a plan of action. So we use the SMART goals framework. I'm sure you're familiar with that. We use that. And then there's also an exercise called Let's Face It. And Let's Face It is where we look at our successes, failures, and fears. And I like this exercise because it does a few different things. When we look at our successes, we can help to eliminate imposter syndrome. We can see how credible and how capable we are of succeeding. Sometimes we forget that we can do the things that we want to do because of fear and other things that creep in. But when we look at our successes and we list the things that we have done successfully, it's kind of a confidence booster. So we definitely look at that. Then we look at our failures, or for better terms, lessons. We look at the lessons that we learned through the things that didn't go the way that we wanted them to. We figure out if there's any weaknesses or any gaps that can be filled with education, with outsourcing or outside help. If there's something that another resource that I can provide, or someone in my network can provide, we look at that as well. So that's where we do the successes, we do the failures, and then we look at our fears. And our fears are the number one thing that I think stops most of us from reaching our goals. It's procrastination, right? But I think procrastination is a combination of two things. You don't have a clear path, but we've already figured that out in the vision clarity section. And there's a fear. And so if we can address those fears and look at them and what they are, and determine whether or not they're even realistic, right? And if they are, ways to combat it. And if they're not, ways to combat it. But we want to look at those fears so we can acknowledge those obstacles. So when that emotion starts to arise, we can acknowledge it and we can move accordingly. So successes, failures, and fears fall under that action piece. And I put it there intentionally because this is where we start the movement. This is where we start the movement forward. And so oftentimes when we're in the thick of things, imposter syndrome and obstacles and doubt start to creep in. So if we can look at these things while we're dealing with them, I feel like we have a better handle on them, or you can be aware of them before they arise. Phase 4 is the discipline phase. Now, this is the part where I think a lot of women fall off because they might, get clear and they have a lot of motivation and they're ready to go. They have a path, but then that discipline piece is where I've noticed that a lot of people, even myself, have been lacking. And so this is where we do a couple different things. We start accountability tracking, and we set target dates so that you know when and where you're supposed to be. And I will be the person to help hold you accountable to those target dates. I put target dates on my calendar so I can follow up with everyone that I'm working with as well. Like, are you working on this? You said you were going to do this. Are you keeping the promise you made to yourself? So we do a lot of accountability in that way. There's habit tracking so that we can see if there's a particular habit of journaling every day, or waking up earlier every day, or going to bed earlier every day. We're going to track those habits so we can make sure that we're getting closer to reaching those goals. And then another exercise we do in this portion, which is probably my favorite, is we establish a self-care plan. Because in the midst of reaching your goals, I think it's important I always say we have to plan out our self-care. We have to be intentional. We can't just say, oh, I think I'm going to do this day, because it's not going to happen. So part of having a self-care plan, it's very simple, clear cut, but I ask you to fill it out. And all it says is when I will. So whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, I will do breathing exercises. Or when I reach my first weight loss goal, or on this target date, I will celebrate by doing this. So having a strategic plan before you need it, so that whenever these emotions arise or whenever you reach those celebratory goals, you can enact your self-care plan. So we do that also in the discipline phase. And the fifth and final phase, and probably my favorite, is retreat. Every year we have a relax, reset, recharge women's retreat in Palm Springs, where we get away for a weekend and not only focus and have downtime, but we get fed with some good information and resources as well. There's a winery tour one day. There's some canvas painting, some real laid back activities. There's time to do absolutely nothing, but then we do R&B yoga, and we have some hands-on workshops from some dynamic speakers. The last year's event was amazing, and this year's event unfortunately was postponed due to COVID-19, but the dates for next year's retreat is already scheduled October 14th through October 17th of 2021. And this will be a time where all of my coaching clients and any other women that are invited can come together and just get to know each other, to grow their network, to support each other's businesses, to find out what they're doing. And you can really celebrate and share how much you have grown over the last year, both in the one-on-one coaching or just on your own. This is really a time for networking where I really like to see my core values of Hey Girl, Hey Health and Fitness, which are authenticity, connection, and fun, really carried out. We have a good time, we connect, and you are invited to be your authentic self. So I included that in the framework because I think it's an important piece to really just bring it all together. So we had the vision clarity, the plan, action, discipline, and retreat. And this is simply just to help you remove the chaos, get control of the chaos in your life so that you can prioritize your own self-care and keep the promises you make to yourself. I'd love to hear more from you and connect with you. If you're not already a VIG, you got to get on my email list so that we can stay in contact. I can be reached on Instagram and Facebook at Hey Girl Fitness. My email address is victoria@heygirlfitness.com. My website is heygirlfitness.com. And remember, girl is G.U.R.L. And girl, as always, remember that you are gorgeous, unmatched, remarkable lady who deserves to keep the promises that you make to yourself. See you next time.